Welcome back, everyone. In this lesson, I want to review web scraping a little bit and the idea of scanning a website or scraping a website and fetching information out of it. So, useful thing to do sometimes if you want to gather information from a website. And there are several libraries that allow you to do that. Probably the most popular one is called Beautiful Soup. If you think of a typical website as being sort of soup of tags and text and stuff, it allows you to beautify that. So let's get started by looking at first website, and this is Yellow Pages and a search for coffee. So here I'm at yellowpages.com, and I've typed in coffee for my search and the location being Washington, D.C., and I can click find. And then what I can do is I can take this URL right here and copy and paste it into Jupyter. First, I'm going to import requests, and I'm going to, from Beautiful Soup version 4, import the Beautiful Soup method. And I have this variable R I'm going to call requests.get, and I've already pasted the URL in here. If you take a look at R itself, its response is 200, which means that it's an HTML response. You're probably familiar with 404, which is a page not found. 200, we don't see it. It's when the page loads properly. So this basically says that the page loaded. To actually see the content, I have to call the content attribute right here. So r.content. And you can see that it is showing the all the tags and the text that's on the website that the browser is interpreting and creating what we see here. Okay, so that's the idea. I'll leave that open for the time being. So that's the content. You can see that it is not, the most attractive thing to have to sift through if you need. Of course, if you're familiar with regular expressions, and I have a video on that, it can come in handy if you want to fetch stuff out of it. But here we're using web scraping. I'm going to create a variable called soup, and I'm going to call Beautiful Soup and apply it to the content right here. So let's do that, and then let's print soup. And you can see that this is much cleaner now as it is, because we applied Beautiful Soup to it. So we can see the tags much more clearly. There's some JavaScript here. Still, it's a little bit of a mess. We can call the prettify method to make it look a little nicer, depending on who you talk to. And I don't see that it really made a whole lot of difference, frankly. So now there are a bunch of tags over here. The anchor tag, or the A tag, which is what makes the web work, is what allows you to link to various places or anchor to various places. That's where the A comes from anchoring. So having my soup variable, I can call the find all method, and there are other methods, but I want to find all the A tags. Let's check them out. As you can see, the find all method returns a Python list, and I have my A tag. So there's one, there's another one, there's another one. Each of these is separated by a comma. We can see that we are dealing with a Python list. I can get all the H1 tags, and in this case there's only a single H1 tag, and that matches that coffee in Washington, D.C. This must be the H1 tag that was in fact returned. Okay, moving on down the list, it says show all the links here. So I can call find all A, as we know that returns a list. So I'm looping through the list, and I'm going to for each of these links, call the get method and fetch the hyperlink reference. And you can see that a lot of these do have hrefs right here, and a link, whether it's to a distant location or might be a local link, which doesn't have the, like here, /login, which points to the login page. So the way I did it is I want to get the hyperlink reference and some asterisk here, and also the text, which is the text that falls between the opening and closing A tag. So this is the opening A tag. Here's what gets underlined or highlighted, and this is the closing A tag. Let's check it out. So here they are. This is returning, it's a print statement, so it's not a list or anything, but we can see that some of these things, for instance, there's the login, which matches the text login, sign up, and then we have some that are actually HTTPs or HTTPSs, and what they're highlighting. So that's the text that's highlighted. So clicking on coupons and deals will take you to this page right here. Let's go ahead and get all the links and display it in a proper format. And proper format, I mean in sort of a link format that you would put in on an HTML page. So what I'm doing right here is I'm doing the same loop, but I'm using these placeholders. So %s, and then over here I have this percent with tuple where I put link.gethref, which is going to go into the first %s, and then link.text, which is going to go in the second one. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, why don't you use the format method? And you're right, we could, and I have it down here. So just so if you're familiar with that, with the curly braces being the placeholder, perfectly fine. You can do it that way too. I just want you to see there are other ways of handling these texts. So that's another way. So these are identical, but just done differently. Let's go ahead and create a soup variable and get the coffee store's information. So the soup variable that I'm creating is the gdata. And this is going to call the soup that I have created already, call find all, and look for the div tags, which is for division. And the attributes that I'm looking for is this class attribute with info. And let's take a look at gdata. You can see that there are a bunch of these divs class with the value of info, and then within that there's additional stuff. But again, this is the list that is being returned. So at some point there's going to be a comma. This is huge. There's a comma. There's another div class info, and inside of this you can see that there is a class, an A class. Business name, data analytics. It's got stuff. Here's a href, for instance, and somewhere in here, for instance, it says Lincoln's Waffle Shop, and up here there's whatever was the first one. I don't know. Difficult to obviously go through and find this. There's a espresso restaurants, coffee and espresso restaurants. I think that might be the name of the place. Oh no, actually it's Compass Coffee. That's what it is. So there's a bunch of stuff here. Now, if you're not familiar with what a div is, what a class is, all that stuff, that's really HTML. I just give you a quick overview that div tag is used to divide up the page. By itself, it really doesn't do anything. You have to use various CSS cascading style sheets options to or definitions, I should say, to arrange these boxes, these divisions on the page. The class is one of the options of doing that. So there is a class called info defined somewhere in a CSS, and that is being called. That makes this appear, the cool way and pretty way that it appears. You can have multiple classes be applied in orders. So you just separate them via a space. In this case, I have a class info for this outer div. There's an inner div here that has its own class, info sections, info primary, etc. And there's a h2 tag, which has a class of n. I'm not sure what that definition is, but that's pretty much what these classes do. They're defined in a CSS someplace, and that CSS is being called by the page, and it's formatting stuff. But this is very handy because class names are unique when they are applied to this div tag. So when I call class info right here, I can always target these div tags that are named by that class, which is kind of handy, which means I can find things. In case you're wondering what's over here, this is the class, and this is called the value, or the, if you will, the attribute for that class. So for item in gdata, which is what I created, let's go ahead and print item.text. And the text is anything but the tags. So we don't want to look at the tags here. And we can see that the text is, one Compass Coffee, coffee and espresso. It's not putting spaces there because there is no space in there. So it shows you all the text. Notice there are no tags here. This is all the text. I want to get the items as a list. So for item in gdata, let's take a look at item.contents. So I can see that this is returning this beautiful list for me, and somewhere down here there will be a, there is the end of that list, there's another list, etc. So by simply calling contents, I return it as a list. Let's print the 0th element, content and text. So for item in GData, I'm going to print item.contents 0, and then a line break, basically this print statement, and then I want to see the content 0.text. And this gives you an idea that here is the content. This is the first element in that list. It's showing you that, and then the text is below this. There's a lot of search results, obviously, but oh, there you go. There should be a, oh, there you go. There's my little asterisk, and then there's the text that we saw earlier. Just again, this is just understanding what contents does. Okay. Now I do want to point out that contents 0 refers to the 0th element in that result that's being fetched, and this is going to make more sense in just a little bit. Let's get the name and address of the place. So I'm going to say for item in GData, item.contents 0.text and item contents.to.text. So I can see that I am getting the name of the place. I am not seeing the address here. At least I don't see the address. I'm wondering if that's 1 now, because they do change this every so often. So it is 1. So again, this is something that, yellowpages.com, the webmaster, whoever he is or she is, they might make some changes. So the address has been moved to a different location within that structure. So I put in, 0 is still the name, and then 1 was the address that I can see that was fetched right here. And it looks like they put the telephone number, sort of combined it with the address there. So there you go. So this is getting that information. It's still not very pretty the way it is, but we're gonna take care of that. So I want to get more specific using the class and build a list. So I'm going to say for item in GData, item.content 0, find all the anchor tags that have the attributes class business name, and get the text for that, the 0th element, and then get the text for that, and go to contents 1, and look for div tags, class street address, class locality, class phones. And this is something I had to go through this soup and locate, these classes. There's a, for instance, what is that? Street address. If you search through this, you're going to find a div tag that has the class of street address, which is a way of identifying that particular part, which is the address. I'm trying to manually find this, which is not easy, as you can see. But I'm going to do my best to find it. Let me come up to the original one right here, class info. So let's try to find the street address here somewhere. Some of you might have already found it and saying, why doesn't he see it? Quite an annoying way to try to find something. So I see there's the link, there is the name, class, categories. There's a street address here somewhere. Div class. And that's what I had to do, find what this class is called, and there you go. So street address, you see class right here, and the attribute is called street address. I can target that and basically fetch the text, which is right there. And there's a class called locality, which shows you the cities, Washington, the state abbreviation DC, and the zip code. And there's a telephone number here somewhere too. You get the idea. So that's what I had to do just once, just to see what they're called. And once I had that, then I was good to go. So I can come down here and fetch the text for all of those, and then get a beautiful list. I notice I put here that the attributes option that we're using here is optional. You don't need to put that in there. I didn't put it in these two just so you see that it's optional. But if it makes it clear, do put in the ATTRS in there, okay? If you have a class that has multiple values, you can put a single value in there. You don't need to put both of them. Either one will work. So if it's a business name and business something else or whatever, you can just put one of them and it will still find it. So I have this, and this is a beautiful list. This is great. So I scraped the website for coffees in Washington, D.C. at yellowpages.com, and I found these. So what I want to do is make a list out of this. To illustrate that, first I'm going to import CSV, and if you watch the CSV file, you're familiar with this. I can open an eggs.csv here, and I'm going to, have a spam writer, csv.writer, CSV file, delimiter, comma, and I'm going to write spam, lovely spam, and wonderful spam to this file, okay? And if I take a look at this, if I bring up this eggs.csv, you can see that it wrote spam, lovely spam, wonderful spam, which is great. So now that we have that, I can do the same thing. I call it a coffee file, open coffee.csv for writing. So it's going to create that file with a delimiter of comma. And then I can loop through my G-data, everything that we saw up there, and then basically write that to the file. I can write all of this stuff to the file. First, I'm going to print the items so you can clearly see them. And then I have this coffee writer, which is that CSV writer. And I'm going to write row item 1, 2, 3, and 4 to my file. And then I close the file. So this way I see it being printed, which we saw already, but I also just created this coffee.csv. Let me bring it up here and show it to you. And you can see that, in fact, I do have a list. Coffee, Compass Coffee. I probably should, this is treating it like a header, the very first one. We could, of course, add a header in the print statements before the loop, so it creates that header. In fact, let me go ahead and do that. So I can come over here and right above this. So here it is, coffeewriter.writer. I was trying to save some time. And I passed with a list, and I have the headers coffee shop, address, city, phone. And if I execute this again, this is before the for loop, of course. This should show up here. Actually, I'm just writing that to the file, so it's not going to show up here. I apologize. So here's the coffee.csv that was created, and you can see that it wrote coffee shop on top, address, city, and phone. So now we have basically our list of coffee shops. So this was done via web scraping. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and you see what you can do. There's a lot you can do with web scraping. We pretty much just used one of the methods, which was find all. There are tons of other methods for you to find and fetch things with web scraping. I encourage you to explore Beautiful Soup. It has its own library, and it has its own white paper where you can take a look at and see what all the methods do. Thank you for being a great audience. If you enjoyed these, please share with loved ones and friends, and see you in the next video.